Hi guys, welcome back and thank you very much for clicking on a video about tuning. Who would have thought, hey, with all the videos out there about legato, sweep picking, alternate picking and all that, a video about tuning, something that so many of us often overlook and assume that we know how to do, when actually I see quite a lot of people making some very slight errors that can really make a big impact on their tuning stability. A lot of people thinking that there's problems with their tuners, or they need to change their tremolo system because it's not reliable because it keeps going out. No, quite a lot of the time these are just simple little things that you can do when you're tuning in order to improve your stability so much, and it just has such a big impact on your guitar and on your playing and everything. So again, thank you very much for clicking, and while you're there in that whole clicking kind of thing, get down and click on that subscribe video, the little subscribe, the little like button, all that kind of stuff. It makes a big difference, and as a thank you for doing that, I am now going to show you the very first one of these little tips and tricks. So the first tip I'm going to give you regards straight after you've restrung your guitar. As soon as you restring your guitar, what you need to do is stretch your strings. And when I say stretch your strings, I don't mean do this. This is not enough. When you stretch your strings, you need to do a proper pull here. You need to do it across the string. And this helps to stretch out any give in the string. As you can hear now, this was in tune a minute ago, just doing that pull. Another pull, if I pull on the string. This will give any stretch that the string has, and this will get rid of it. And this stops the string from stretching out. Do it a couple more times. And you'll notice it's happening less and less each time. There we go. And now it's back in tune, and now if I pull it again, staying in tune. Now you'll notice all I'm doing there is literally grabbing the string between my first and thumb and just pulling on the string, just stretching it out. I'm holding down the frets here to make sure that this is stretching between here and here. Then I'll move this down and I'll stretch to here. Then I'll move it down and I'll stretch to here, and I'll just pull on the string just enough to get rid of all that give in the string. This is one of the main reasons that guitar strings go out of tune straight after restringing. Your strings are all happily wound up with no pressure exerted on them whatsoever, then all of a sudden they are yanked up to pitch when we put them on the guitar. And of course they're going to stretch. These are not solid things. You know, these strings have give in them, otherwise we wouldn't be able to bend them. So you need to be able to compensate for that and go through every single one of your strings. It takes about 2 or 3 minutes. Just yank on the strings. In tune. If I yank on it again. Very slightly flat. And now another one. There we go. Back in tune. Actually, before I jump into the next tip, there's something else that I really want to explain a little bit about tuning. It's important to bear in mind that your guitars, on the whole, are made of wood. And wood is susceptible to temperature changes. So that means if your guitar goes into the boot of a car, if your guitar is resting in a room that has high or low temperature, any kind of fluctuation, any kind of difference in temperature, if you go from one temperature to another, if it's a hot day, if it's a cold day, anything like that, your guitar can and will very slightly adjust. And that will send your guitar out of tune. It can be the strings, it can be the neck, it can be the body. All of these things can actually just be part of learning and playing the guitar. It's not unusual for guitars to go out of tune when they're susceptible to temperature changes. So bear that in mind when you're kind of judging your guitar on its tuning stability and things like that. There are certain things that we just can't control. With that said, let's get on with the next one. And do remember, again, like and subscribe. So that idea of the strings going flat and then tuning them back up has given me a nice segue into my next tip, which is whenever one of your strings goes out of tune, even if it goes sharp, so there you can hear the string is now sharp. If you're going to tune a string flat, always go further back than you need to. So you go further down than you need to. And that helps to keep your string stable. If you tune up to a note, the string is less likely to slip if you tune down to a note. If you tune down to a note, there's a chance that the string might slip back a little bit and go flat, or it might slip back up and go sharp. If you tune down and then bring it back up, the odds are that you're getting rid of any slack tension in the tuning peg. So you slacken it down and then bring it back up and tighten it back up. You're less likely to have any issues. So always tune down lower than you need first and then back up. So if you're one of the guys that tunes to drop D a lot, don't just drop down to D. Go a little bit further back and then tune it back into D. There you go. Always tune lower and then back up. That's another tip for you. Now, this one may seem obvious to some of you. However, this is always worth pointing out. Replace your strings. Replace your strings more often than you think you need to. Once your strings start going out of tune, it is a sign that they are wearing out. It is just a simple thing that happens. Most sets of strings will last a month to 2 months, ideally. Mine last a little bit less because I'm quite often playing and gigging and getting them all manky and gunky, and that means that they start to go out of tune. If your strings are starting to go out of tune, you possibly need to start replacing your strings a little more often. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to buy expensive strings. It doesn't mean you have to do that. Just make sure that you're keeping on top of it and keeping your strings in working order. Now, this is one of the biggest giveaways that strings need replacing, is that they start drifting out of tune. This is definitely the first thing I would do before I look at replacing anything like hardware or upgrading tuners or anything like that. First of all, whenever you're looking at any problems with your guitar, just replace your strings first. It's a really simple solution and it quite often solves a lot of the problems. And the last thing I want to talk about is actually the possibility that there may be a hardware issue causing your tuning problems. Now, this is way less common than people like to think. A lot of people like to assume that the problems they're having are due to their hardware and not the fact that they're tuning their guitar wrong. We'd all like to think that, but however, sadly the case is that most of the time people are making a slight error somewhere along the line and that's what's causing their tuning problems. But it's not unheard of for problems to happen, and most of the time when it comes to tuning, the issue is what we call friction. There will be some point on your guitar where your string will be catching, or somewhere where it is not moving backwards and forwards very smoothly. It's usually either at the nut or at the bridge, occasionally at the tuners. Locking tuners do help with tuning stability. However, they are not essential. You should be able to get by without locking tuners and still have a relatively in-tune guitar for the majority of the time. The main benefit with locking tuners is when it comes to string changes. You don't need to wind your strings on. You can just pull through, lock them, and then on to the next one. Do be careful when you're doing things with your guitar setup. Don't go tweaking things like your truss rod if you don't know what you're doing. But when it comes to tuning, most of the time the issue is lubrication. Make sure that if you're using a tremolo arm or anything like that, that everything is thoroughly lubricated and that your strings can carefully move backwards and forwards without any issues. Same in the nut. When you're doing bends, what you're doing is you're pulling your string backwards and forwards through the nut. As you bend up, the string gets pulled back through the nut, and then as you let down, the string goes back through the nut. If there is a slight burr on your nut, or the string slots are not cut particularly well, what can happen is as you bend up, the string will come through, and on the way back it will catch, therefore it won't return back to exactly the same position. And what you'll then get is later on when you're playing, you'll get this lovely ping noise as your string pops back through where it was before, and then your guitar will be back in tune. If this is happening, just smooth out the slots in your nut, or add some pencil lead, something like that. Some graphite in there is always good, or some Big Ben's nut sauce, or whatever it is you need to use. Just lubricate here and lubricate here at any point where your string is contacting the guitar. Those are the main issues. You can have issues with your tuners that are causing tuning, however, it's very unlikely. You can usually notice it because the main problem is that tuners start to slip. If you notice that you're tightening it and it's not actually tuning up, or you're tightening it and you can see the tuner slipping backwards, or you can see the peg turning back when you're not turning it, those are the big indicators that you've got an issue on your hands and you need to start looking at some hardware. But other than that, you should be able to keep your guitar in tune fairly happily using just the tips that I've given you today. Hopefully there might be something in there that you've perhaps not heard before, something that you didn't know about. If that's the case, then please do let me know in the comments below, and drop a like, drop a subscribe. It's all appreciated, so thank you very much. And hopefully this has been helpful for you, and I'll catch you next time.